It's commonly held that companies need to increase the participation of women in leadership. Female representation in company leadership has increased over the last few decades, but women are still drastically underrepresented in corporate management. For some, this may be a simple equality issue that really does not require additional justification. But from a practical business point of view, as well as from a research point of view, we're interested in knowing what are the consequences for corporate performance of having more women in the upper echelons of companies. One answer to that question may be that it's going to harm corporate innovation. The reason is that women on average are more risk averse than men are. And innovation involves a journey into the unknown, it involves risk, and it involves uncertainty. But we may also answer the question by pointing to the fact, which is a fairly evidence-based one, that women lead differently. They're more inclusive, they're less transactional, they're more helpful, they're less hierarchical. These are things that may be very good for innovation, where we need tolerance for failure, we need knowledge sharing, we need helping behaviors, and so on. So there are both pros and cons. Having more women in top management may be good for innovation, it may be bad for innovation. We don't know on a priori grounds, which means, of course, that we need to look at what the data says. With a Danish colleague, Jakob Lyngsig of Southern Denmark University, I recently published an article in the Strategic Management Journal which does exactly this. So Jakob and I analyze register and survey data, and we find that there is in fact a strong, significant positive relation between having more women in the top management team and more innovation. However, the relation is not a simple linear one. There has to be a critical mass of women in the top management team before the positive consequences for innovation of the female leadership style or of more diversity can become manifest. Somewhat surprisingly perhaps, we also find that the positive relation between more women in the top management team and more innovation is a weaker relation in those companies that already have a high proportion of women in the workforce. And we cannot really see in the data why this is so. But we speculate, and we make it credible through a number of additional tests, that something called categorization plays a major role here. So the basic idea is that stereotyping in a closed, male-dominated top management team can lead to a perception of women and their contributions as inferior. But as more women are added to the management team, the critical mass is obtained and women are recategorized into being top managers in their own right. However, this recategorization may also have some unanticipated negative consequences because female top managers' behaviors may not conform to the expectations of gender solidarity that may be held by women at lower levels in the corporate hierarchy. In extreme cases, female top managers may even be seen as hostile queen bees by the other women in the company, causing a decline in the latter's commitment and motivation, which in turn may harm innovation outcomes. So overall, we think that our findings are very good news for those who would like to see more women in corporate leadership. But there is a proviso here. While having more women in corporate management is good for innovation, that effect is significantly less pronounced in those companies where there are already many women in the workforce.